Yeah, thank you so much for joining on our weekly space. We have a special guest today. We have Sem from Sovereign Labs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to get things going because we're a bit behind schedule. So why don't you just tell me about Sovereign Labs?
Yeah, Sovereign Labs, a roll-up infrastructure company. We're building what's called Sovereign SDK, what we hope to make the most flexible framework for building rollups that run in real time.
And so you mentioned the Sovereign SDK. First, what's an SDK? And then we'll ask what's specifically special about the Sovereign Labs SDK.
Yes, so SDK is a software development kit, and what Sovereign SDK is, basically basically a toolkit for developers to build their custom rollups in as fast as possible.
And so, like, I guess, what does that mean for someone like me who barely understands basic coding?
So okay, most of the time when a developer tries to do like complicated things on the internet, or like when a developer tries to build stuff, we build stuff on existing abstractions. um, very like very like low number of developers actually work. um, Actually, like almost everyone, any type of developer works on like some level of abstraction. When you're writing your computer code, you like work with the APIs. You work with the APIs. Like you work on like a C abstraction, for example. Like you don't actually write assembly. Um, like when you're building a server, most of the time, if you're building a simple JavaScript server, you're using Node.js and like a server framework called Express. In the blockchain world, we think that rollups are a very simple way to launch custom chains and run applications with dedicated throughput and low fees. But they're pretty like complex data structures, and to make them like work securely and stably, you need to build pretty sophisticated systems. But we don't expect the average developer to know how to build these complicated systems from scratch. So we build basically tooling for people to just focus on their business logic, write what's necessary for their application, and we provide all the scaffolding
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
and all the yeah, like the complex data structures around it necessary to run this business logic as a rollup.
And like, how did this come to be? Because like sometimes we have guests and they talk about like, was this a hackathon project? Did you like meet at a bar to talk to your co-founders? Like, how did this come out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in the blockchain space since around 2017. I initially was working on um, Ethereum like consensus like infrastructure. I worked on one of the consensus clients called Teku, and at the time, although my focus was on like consensus clients, like since like one of the first days that I joined crypto, I've always been obsessed about making blockchain infrastructure accessible to mainstream users, to scale the industry, to like bring the industry and its like benefits, the technology's benefits to masses. And for me, one of the biggest reasons, and like for many others, of course, one of the main reasons that um, like we couldn't build like mainstream applications of blockchains was that they were just too clunky, too slow, too expensive to use. And so scalability had been on my mind since the like first few months after I joined the space. But I only got to work on it after basically we like shipped the Ethereum's like proof of stake consensus back around 2021, and I was able to take a breather and started thinking about what I'm going to do next. And as I was going through a bunch of like research papers and reading about different like scaling techniques, I noticed that with erasure coding, a technique that's like very commonly used on like CDs and a bunch of different like existing technologies, we could really scale the data specific blockchains, what we now call data ability layers. And so my mind directly went to, okay, if we can have like a world with abundant data ability, what's like the missing piece for building like mass market applications using blockchain technology? And to me, the answer was, okay, we need like actual like proper toolkits to build rollups, because we're like gonna have the data, but users still don't know how to take that data and turn that into like secure blockchain applications. So around 2022, I started forming this thesis and incorporated Sovereign Labs, and soon after found my co-founder very luckily through a mutual friend.
And that, so just from the thesis to meeting your friend, it just took off from there.
Yeah. So like since I had like pretty serious experience in building uh, mission critical blockchain infrastructure, um, I like had confidence that we could build an engineering company that would do the same, but for roll-up infrastructure. So we basically just got going after that.
All right, so let's pretend I want to create a roll up off of Ethereum. I have done nothing other than make that decision. Like, how do I go about doing that?
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you right now, like Sovereign SDK primarily targets Celestia and Solana. We did
We can
have
do
a
that. We can do that if you want on Solana.
yeah.
Or
Yeah. So what you do is you go to like and like this repo is currently private because we're about a month away from finalizing like the findings from the audits, and like just generally making our um, like toolkit like repos public. But basically, we have a like roll up template repo where you go to and clone it, and then like you just basically start writing Rust as the backend of your application, similar to how you'd be writing like the like if you like similar to how you'd be writing the backend of like your web application. But if you write it in like the basically the structure that we point out in the docs, and we have like templates for, we're able to take that Rust code and turn it into a verifiable rollup.
and like, do you need a lot of? I'm assuming you need some tech skills, right? Like, I probably couldn't do this like by myself.
Yeah, no, like this is for developers.
Okay. Is there any plan in the future to have like a non-developer friendly option, or I guess that's the
No, this
question.
is it's a developing like um no like this is for developers.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. I have to ask that question because I have some knowledge. I try to teach myself, but you do not want to hire me as a developer. If you have an opening, I am not your guy.
That's fine.
So zero on your website, like zero knowledge seems to be a big part of Sovereign Labs. First, can you just give us an idea of what zero knowledge is?
Yeah, zero knowledge is um, a computer science slash mathematic mathematics concept that enables us to prove the output of long-running computations with a succinct cryptographic proof. So it just enables you to verify the result of a computation without having to actually run the computation itself. And what that usually entails in these types of systems is that one heavily invested party can do an insane amount of work. And actually, let me try this again. What this entails, what this entails in a lot of these systems is that you get to have one system do like heavy compute, whereas a lightweight system can just verify the result of that heavyweight compute without doing the heavyweight compute themselves.
And so I guess I've always been told like it's sort of like a way of because this is why I asked it, because I've always never fully understood it myself. I've been told it's sort of like it proves something without showing why it's true. Is that correct, or is that like a really terrible explanation?
What did you say? You said like prove something without showing what?
It proves it's true while not explaining or it doesn't. How do I say this? This is why I asked you.
So you can
but
keep some inputs like private. Like you can keep some inputs private, and you don't have to like show the computation. You just have to you just commit to the result of it. So yeah, like there's like it's a pretty big concept. Like it can for some projects it means more focused on privacy because they focus on like they focus on the usage of like keeping the inputs private. Whereas for like most blockchain use cases, it's more useful on the scaling side because basically just a few like centralized nodes like does the heavy compute and the other like nodes can just verify the like work.
Okay, so I just learned something today because I honestly thought it was mostly focused on privacy, but you're telling me now that it really just makes things more efficient.
Yes. I mean, really, yeah. Really depends on where you look at it and where you apply it. It's kind of like saying like, does cryptography make things efficient, or like does cryptography make things like I don't know private? But it can be used in many different ways. It's a pretty high level concept. It really depends on like the domain where you're applying it to.
All right, thanks for explaining that. Like I said, I learned something really important today about zero knowledge, and now it's cool that it's not focused on privacy. I always thought privacy was kind of a big privacy advocate, mostly because I found it weird that like with most blockchains, you can like look up someone's address and see what their account is worth. Like imagine if a bank had that feature, it wouldn't be people would be very upset with that. If a bank said, "Look up your friend's account and see how much money they have into it." With Ethereum, you can technically do that, or with most blockchains. But that's why I always was fascinated with zero knowledge and why I asked the question. But I find it even cooler that this has this other aspect to it.
Yeah.
So
So basically, like
no,
I
keep
guess
going.
like to provide you a bit more information. For example, in Zcash case, and in Zcash, like it's definitely being used in the privacy front. Um, like what happens is that like when you're like spending some money, you're basically getting like either when you just generate a zk proof that you are spending a valid, basically a UTXO, like a valid like money from the blockchain without revealing which money that was, and that makes your like payments untraceable and private. Whereas in like the zk rollups context, you get to have this one centralized sequence or prover. Actually, just the prover do a bunch of process a bunch of millions of transactions, and when let's say that rollup is trying to prove its state to Ethereum so that people can bridge the Ethereum, the only thing that on the Ethereum side Ethereum needs to verify is a single short proof. Not they don't Ethereum doesn't need to redo all that computation that the rollup has done.
Wow.
So you can see how
And
the same tech is being applied in different ways in different places.
yes, that's just incredible. And so, I did a lot of background research on Sovereign Labs. I'm sure I barely scratched the surface of you guys. But a big thing that I took away was that, and I didn't understand it fully, which is why I think it's a good question. So hopefully you can clarify it. I see a lot about you making zero knowledge cheaper. I didn't even know it was expensive. Can you go into more detail about that?
Yes, we're not working on zero knowledge cheaper. I think that might have been a mistake. Yeah, we're not in that area. We
Oh,
integrate with zero knowledge virtual machines so that our users can use whichever zkVM they want to bridge. However, we're not working on making zkVMs cheaper.
oh, okay. Sorry about that. So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I think it wasn't on your website for the record that I saw that. It was an article, I want to say CoinDesk, that was written about you. So you yourself are not misrepresenting on your website. I'd like to clarify that. Um, so what are the advantages of building your own roll up instead of just using existing chains?
That's a great question. When you're building on an existing chain, you're basically deploying your application in an environment which was optimized to run a bunch of different applications side by side. There's a lot of limits to what you can do in such an environment, like just due to the fact that you're sharing this environment. There you will not be able to get dedicated throughput for your application. So in case one of the other applications deployed on the same environment becomes really viral, or its usage really grows over time, you might be paying congestion fees due to the traffic from that application, even if your application hasn't took off yet and you don't have traffic on your own. Even if yours grow as well, you're just now paying unnecessary extra congestion fees. So not having dedicated throughput is one of the biggest pain points, and biggest drivers of why people want to launch their own rollups. The dedicated throughput slash fees is kind of the same thing, because yeah, having dedicated throughput enables you to have lower fees. One of the other reasons where you might want to deploy your own rollup rather than building on an existing environment is on an existing environment, the set of customizations you can do for your application is pretty limited. There are few reasons why Hyperliquid became a very much a huge success that it has been this cycle, and two of them are two very interesting customizations that the Hyperliquid team has done. One of them is they've made one actually three of them. One, they've custom built their architecture so that they can provide extremely low latency confirmations for their users, and in that way, their market makers can trade as fast as they did on centralized exchanges. Another is they basically built custom rules around transaction ordering. They're processing cancel transactions way faster than take transactions. In this way, they're reducing toxic order flow on their chains, and this is something that would be really hard to do on a shared environment. And another is they automatically trigger their own market maker, their in protocol market maker HLP, to take on some positions or to, like, close positions. And again, without writing those rules inside like your like the root logic of your like chain, it would be quite hard to do that. You would have to trigger like your like protocol native like liquidity provider ever so frequently, and it would just become an insane cost, and it might potentially not get triggered at times, leading to pretty insecure like market making. So writing your like having your own chain, having your own rollup for your own use case provides you just like so much more flexibility, so much more like power to customize your infrastructure to really serve your own use case.
And like you mentioned costs, like do you have any like is this something that small organizations can afford, or is it just big organizations that you think you're going to target?
Our idea is that anyone should be able to spin up a rollup as simply as as simply as like they spin a web app. At the end of the day, like if you're not a like very if you don't have like if you don't need to have a lot of like 999 SLAs and 999s around like sequencer failover and stuff, you should just be able to run a couple of AWS boxes, like one for your sequencer and full node, and potentially one another like replica in case your sequencer goes down, and you should be able to basically pipe all your events into like a scalable Postgres database and serve all your like application related reads from there. So this should be an architecture that like serves both the very early stage companies, as well as you can really like get the architecture like more sophisticated, like provide you can grow it obviously depending on your like business needs, but like our goal is to make it so that even like the smallest projects can utilize it.
I don't mean to put you on the spot with this question, but do you have like a ballpark of how much this would cost?
Let's say 3 AWS boxes, not so like crazy boxes. I don't know, like around like $200 a month, 300. I'm not too
Oh
up to date
wow!
with AWS boxes, yeah. And like
I mean,
if you choose Celestia as your DA layer, um, like then if you choose to run as an optimistic rollup, then you're not going to have any ZK prover costs. And then if you choose to run as a DA, like say, as a Celestia rollup, then like your DA cost will be quite minimal too. In our like stack, we don't have like a settlement cost like Ethereum like rollups require. The forced transactions and security is generally very like provided like by the rollup itself, like rollup's full node logic enforces those rules, and so it should be quite cheap. It's just like matter of like your data costs and your like AWS box costs, or like your whatever you're hosting your nodes.
So yeah, you weren't exaggerating at all when you said like even the smallest projects can do this.
Yeah.
Seems like we bunch of us can just empty out our wallets and pull it together and start our own roll up. So is there, those are mostly the questions I had for you. Is there anything else that we didn't really address that you'd like to talk about with Sovereign Labs?
No, that's all I had from my side as well. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. This has been a very interesting experience. I do want to say that we have a Zealy campaign that we go on weekly. A Zealy campaign that we have going on, that we try to reward people who attend our spaces. To this one, I have to be honest, the code I didn't relate to the space I related to tonight, because we are Toronto DAO, and tonight is game 3 between the Leafs and the Senators. Leafs are up to nothing. So I'm very excited about that. So I just made the code Leafs. So if you go onto our Zeely campaign and see the Sovereign Labs Space Quest, put in Leafs and you'll get the XP for that. I do want to thank not only the people who are listening now and the people who are listening to the recording later, those also who showed up to our event last night. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people. We learned a lot about not only AI, but decentralized AI, and how like more people can participate instead of just your odd, billion-dollar company. And keep an eye out. We're not sure about next month, but just we are sort of talking back and forth between some people, so keep an eye out about that. But we're definitely having an event in June, so I just want to tell people to keep their eye out for the Luma email that will be sent out. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Sam. And I hope everyone has a great weekend coming up, and I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank
Hey,
you, everyone.